When it comes to most altcoins in this space, most of their charts look very similar to HBAR. This is because most altcoins are actually pretty weak against Bitcoin. And when I say most, I mean most of the entire altcoin market is taking a backseat right now as we wait and anticipate Bitcoin dominance topping out and dropping significantly while Bitcoin goes on the last wave 5 leg up this cycle. Now, as we do anticipate this and as we wait, there is a very good opportunity for accumulation. And we actually do have a solid trend since going all the way back to November to actually follow on a lot of these altcoin charts, including, of course, HBAR, that kind of helps guide us on some key significant buy levels. Now, we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about a lot of additional things happening around HBAR, including DeFi and the recent GC member as well. And with that being said, stick around until the end of this video. You guys will not regret it. Let's dive on in and actually talk a little bit more about price action, though. So recently, I did say that, HBAR did have a nice tap of these lower liquidity levels going all the way back to even November, right? So this entire red zone is what I'm really kind of watching on HBAR for some nice impulses to the upside. We already got a significant one from, sub 12 cents. It's like 12 and a half cents, I should say. We already got that nice little impulse from that level to about roughly 15 and a half cents. This was a nice little jump, but let's just be honest, we still have a lot of work to do and we can't get too, ahead of ourselves here. We do need to really kind of reclaim a few key levels before we do say, all right, yeah, HBAR's bottomed here and we should start to have a nice run here. First level that we really want to clear here is about almost 17 cents. And then after 17 cents, we need to clear 22 cents. So this is going to take a bit of time, especially at a time where if we really kind of look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin has been ranging around 107K. And Bitcoin dominance is still around 65%. We're still waiting on altcoins to gain some momentum against their Bitcoin pairs, but we have yet to actually see that. So that's why a lot of altcoins actually look like this. And if you are concerned about HBAR, HBAR is actually not even one of the worst altcoins right now to really kind of look at when it comes to the Bitcoin pair. There's actually a lot that are still at all-time lows or, in deep red. They actually took away all of the November gains, and they're in deep red right now. If we think about, HBAR is actually still up significantly on the 1 year. It's actually still up 88%. And, this is something that I think everyone should acknowledge because, most of these altcoins still look pretty good from, going all the way back to just the beginning of November. But on top of that, right? Where's the next level of crucial demand if we do lose this red zone on HBAR? Well, ultimately speaking, I would be looking at filling a nice fair value gap. The next fair value gap that we actually have on this chart is down here at about roughly 9.5 cents to about 11.5 cents if we're looking at just fair value gaps. If we're looking at demand zones itself, well, then I would be looking at some of these wicks going back to 2024, for an example. The next key level of interest for me is around roughly 7.5 cents to about roughly, 9 cents. So that's like the next crucial level of interest if we lose these lows. Now, a big signal that those levels are coming would be a loss of about 11.5 cents. So watch for that. Now, the big thing to really kind of say, like, all right, yeah, we're going much lower, is also Bitcoin. So watch Bitcoin for any significant reaction or any major real world event to really kind of push us down lower. Bitcoin has been trying to break out and it's been fighting against resistance for a little bit of time now. So while we wait for Bitcoin, just be a little bit more cautious. Now, outside of that, let's actually talk about a few things happening around Hedera that's, in my opinion, pretty bullish for the future price action of HBAR. Number one, stablecoins. I've always said it, right? Stablecoins are not just things that are, thrown on chain and they just sit there. Stablecoins are utilized. They're utilized for payments. They're utilized for, DeFi protocols. They could actually unlock a ton of utility for a lot of these great networks. And of course, when we think about that, right, USDC transaction volume growth in the past year on Hedera has been over 400% plus. This is actually very, very significant, especially considering the fact that this is just from about roughly April to October of 2024. Today, we do know that there's about $113.4 million worth of USDC issued on Hedera. In the past week, this is actually up 176%, 72.3 million. It did have a recent dip, and this did actually hit a high. I think it was like around 200 million or something like that back in like the beginning of the year. But this will fluctuate quite a bit because again, this is stablecoin issuance on Hedera. But the main thing that I'm actually looking at with stablecoins launching on Hedera is the DeFi doors really kind of opening for HBAR. And we already know that Hedera does have quite a bit of DeFi protocols tied to it. I'll go over that here in a second. But also, I think about institutional grade adoption of these networks as well through stablecoins. Why do I say that? Well, because we already do know that a lot of institutional players are tapping into stablecoins. I talked about this even with Ripple and XRP. We have 90% of institutions taking action on stablecoins Fireblock survey. And if we actually look at a few things here, this goes back to May 15th, surveyed 295 executives across traditional banks, financial institutions, fintech companies, and payment gateways. Almost half of the respondents, 49%, said they already use stablecoins in payments, while 23% are conducting pilot tests and another 18% are in the planning stage. Only 10% of institutions surveyed said they were undecided about stablecoin adoption. Now, when we actually look at this, we could see the numbers, but then we also see traditional banks. They're prioritizing cross-border payments for stablecoin use, which is definitely something that I think is still very bullish because we know, with these traditional banks, they're moving trillions of dollars every single year. And the cross-border payments market itself is projected to be like $250 trillion within the next 2 years. So this is a massive use case for a lot of these stablecoins. And remember, these stablecoins need to be settled and moved on some of these networks. When we think about these networks, well, we think about what that could do for the underlying asset because it's going to really kind of demand a lot from the gas token. That's like, for example, HBAR. If the Hedera network is starting to see increased growth and volume and value moving over it, then all of a sudden you see HBAR also increasing in value with that. So that's why I think stablecoin usage around, cross-border payments, for an example, is so bullish because it will actually significantly impact the underlying networks in a very positive way. Now, we also have the stablecoin use cases for traditional banks, 58% cross-border payments, 28% payment acceptance, 12% treasury and liquidity optimization, 9% merchant settlement, and 9% B2B invoicing. So the speed is cited as the top benefit for stablecoin use as well. Outside of that, greater transparency, liquidity, integrated payment flows, enhanced security, and lower transaction cost. So with this, right, we already know that Hedera is going to see more stablecoins launched on it. This year, AUDD just launched on Hedera. We also have those Philippine banks launching a stablecoin, PHPX, right? I do think that this is going to get very bullish very fast for a lot of these great utility networks. But on top of that, we also think about DeFi use cases through stablecoins. Over here, we have that announcement on the 8th, a new era for Hedera. This is where Hedera did announce the, 2 new brand entities. The HBAR Foundation is now the Hedera Foundation, and the Hedera Governing Council is just now the Hedera Council. Within this, they did talk about DeFi. We actually have here Hedera Foundation, led by CEO Charles Atkins, will continue as an independent entity focused on community-driven retail innovation and institutional adoption of the Hedera network. It will also foster the growth of tokenization, AI, and DeFi solutions. Next, we also have down here the Hedera Foundation new focus under Atkins' leadership. The first major thing is that Hedera Foundation is sharpening its focus on core priorities, most notably DeFi and community empowerment. In 2025, it will continue to lead ecosystem integrations while launching new initiatives that make DeFi more accessible. That's very exciting. Now, we do have a few big announcements actually around DeFi. I do think that this prioritized approach on DeFi itself is very bullish. We know of, DeFi 2.0, which was getting pushed back in late 2024. We know that we saw a huge shift around the DeFi side for Hedera. Even today, we still continue to see that. This is actually a new announcement. We're excited to announce that Trade in Orbit, Hedera's fastest all-in-one DeFi trading platform, will be launching on the network in early Q3. I'm very excited about this because, like I said, we already have a decent amount of protocols tied to Hedera. Here we have all of them. There's about 16 here. Some of them are not being utilized. Some of them don't have a significant amount of TVL traction yet. But we do know that Saucer has been very, very bullish for the network. Bonzo has been very bullish as well for the network. And of course, with the market, TVL will fluctuate. That's why we see TVL right now down to like 72 million from its high back here of like $200+ million. Now, we have down here, built by Trench veterans, the team at Orbit understood a gap in the Hedera DeFi ecosystem and have been heads down over the past months to fill it for the whole retail community. With real-time analytics and one-click execution, Orbit is bringing an unprecedented level speed to Hedera DeFi users, whilst democratizing access to a host of new tools. Missed snipes, slow tabs, and unfilled limit orders are about to become a relic of the past, not just for savvy devs, but for everyone. At launch, Orbit will enable one connected trading dashboard, instant order execution with limit support, real-time audit insights for token risk, portfolio tracking tied to a non-custodial wallet, precision tools for sniping new launches. We greatly look forward to Orbit's launch as we work together to advance Hedera's DeFi ecosystem. So this is a very bullish announcement. And of course, when we think about the DeFi market, by the way, for anyone wondering why, Hedera's DeFi TVL is so low, look at this entire space. I mean, we saw a flush of the DeFi market recently. We're starting to bounce back. But for the most part, this is exactly what we're looking at. We have that nice high back in December, the sell-off, and then we're trying to bounce back. Again, we have yet to actually bounce back here for HBAR because, the price action on HBAR hasn't really bounced back in a big way. The reason why we're starting to see DeFi bounce back here is because of Ethereum actually having a big pop in the market from the lows. For an example, I could actually show you that real quick on the yearly. Here we have that massive low back in April, and then we have that big push. Because again, when we think about Ethereum, Ethereum itself, in terms of all of the chains, Ethereum has over 1,000 plus protocols tied to it. If we actually look over here, we have 1,382 protocols tied to Ethereum's name, and it is like the top TVL network. So that's why we're seeing that big pop. But overall, I do suspect that the TVL on Hedera is going to bounce back in a huge way, especially as we do start to see the market bounce back as well. In terms of DEX volume, DEX volume has been pretty flat since going back to about roughly the end of 2025 or 2024 into like the beginning of 2025. Again, that's because of the overall market participation from retail. Right now, most of this market is pretty dead. I keep saying it, right? Almost all the focus on crypto has been washed away. That's why this next big move is going to be so exciting, because we'll see that retail crowd flow back in and FOMO into the higher price action, pushing us even higher. So with that, right, we really kind of look forward to a lot of the DeFi launches. I know Bonzo also has Bonzo Vault, which is coming soon. This is automated yield optimization pools designed to make earning in DeFi on Hedera simple, seamless, and compounding. And they do break down exactly how this all works if you guys do really want to get, extremely, savvy with how things are working. Definitely go check out Bonzo Finance because they do break everything down. But this is definitely going to be exciting because yield generation on any DeFi protocols definitely really kind of boosts TVL. And we also have to remember that Bonzo Finance is a lending and borrowing platform as well. It's under lending, for an example. Lending is the second largest category by TVL within DeFi. So we already have, staking, lending. We have all of these great use cases. And by the way, lending is actually almost making, it actually did make a new all-time high back in May, which shows you exactly how big the lending side of DeFi actually is. But regardless of that, we know with all of these categories being targeted from the Hedera DeFi side, and even with this new launch of Trade in Orbit, I do think that we're going to start to see the DeFi market for Hedera really kind of open up. And once people realize the power of Hedera compared to like networks like Ethereum, for example, around DeFi and DeFi use cases, I do think that we'll see a significant flood into some of these great networks. And the overall TVL itself will also skyrocket, which will also impact the underlying asset, in this case, HBAR. So with that being said, I hope that guys enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord on the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.